So this next topic, and this is what everybody's talking about, so we've got to talk about it. Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid, they cast a black girl. This was a while ago. And at the time, you had your typical culture war battle lines drawn where the woke people were so happy that this character was race swapped, and the anti-woke people were not happy that this character was race swapped. But that was a while ago. Now the movie is close to coming out, and a lot of stuff has come to a head, and it's a big story now. We'll just go through the various things. First, I've outlined the essential part of it: race swap Little Mermaid. Then recently, and this is so hilarious and based, there was I believe a Chinese person, a Chinese, very based Chinese person. What they did was they took the trailer of Little Mermaid and they digitally made her white.
How do you know? You actually read it was a Chinese person that did that?
Don't quote me on this. I
I
think it was.
I have a feeling
But
it
then they were
was
banned, so
not.
it's hard to tell, right? You can't
No,
really
no, no,
tell.
no, no. The person that posted it was banned, but that wasn't the actual person that did the work.
I think the person who did the work was Chinese.
Um,
I think so.
no. I think I was on that person's Twitter.
Oh.
Let me look for it.
Well, even if the person who did it wasn't Chinese, we're going to link an article that shows some Chinese reaction to this, and they are totally against it. They don't see why it has to be a black girl. They use the word colored in one of their articles describing it.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't understand the backlash against them using that word colored because POC or people of color is still a term that's pretty commonly used, right?
yeah, but the term colored has a legacy where
Hmm.
racist people in the past used it, whereas racist people in the 1950s didn't say POC fountain, they said colored fountain or something like that, right? Or colored
Hmm.
section. So it
Yeah.
has and this is fair. I mean, I don't disagree with this. It has a connection, an association with racist usage. So, okay, I get that. Whereas
Hmm.
POC does not have that connection. So they don't like that term. But back to the main point, people in China, they're just based about this. They don't know why it's been changed. They don't approve of it in general. I think there was a poll. I don't think it's a scientific poll, but there was some poll where it said, "Oh, sign a movie." 60,000 respondents rejected the casting, whereas 5,000 approved of it. That's a pretty heavy rejection rate in China.
How
I
does
didn't know that
Disney?
I didn't know that they felt this strongly about it. Like, did they watch Little Mermaid? I guess they did.
So, I mean, so Disney always seems to be very concerned about selling their shit in China, right? So why is it that this time they don't seem to be?
Well, I mean, they seem concerned about it, but I guess maybe they just have to take certain L's in China. We do know that, for instance, like there was this controversy when Disney, for instance, when they released Black Panther in China, they like their posters covered up the actor's face, Black Panther's face with a mask, whereas
Right, I
they
saw
didn't
that.
cover it up here.
Yeah.
And other examples where they do cater to Chinese people being a little more racist than people in America. And when I say a little, I mean a lot. They are just, let's be honest, they're a lot more racist in China. The Chinese don't like it. They made this they made this trailer where they turned her white again, and a lot of the anti-woke channels like Jeremy and Tim were like, "Well, I thought you said race doesn't matter. It's a fictional, it's like mermaids don't exist." And yeah, I get that argument. I get that argument. It's fair too because the left, the woke left said, "Well, it's just a mermaid. Why are you so angry that she's black? It doesn't matter what color she is." And then someone flipped her color, and they're screaming and they're banning people.
Okay, wait. But somebody pointed out that this wasn't just any mermaid, right? This is Ariel.
Right. It is based on a Danish folk tale. So presumably this mermaid is white. So Disney is sort of culturally appropriating this property. But basically, it is funny. I always love base takes. So I'm all for people trying to trigger the left by making the mermaid white. That's fine. It's all in good fun. trigger them. It makes them I love that. But my take on the meat of this issue is that both the right and the left are kind of wrong on this particular topic because whenever the left uses their tired accusation that something is being culturally appropriated, what do we say? We always say that's garbage. There's no cultural appropriation. People, cultures mix. Cultures appreciate other aspects of other cultures. That's not appropriation. You can't protect it. A famous example is when non-black people wear braids or dreadlocks. They're often accused of culturally appropriating. It's like, it's just wearing your hair a certain way. Anybody's hair can be styled in this way. You don't own it. That's ridiculous. And yet you get accused of that cultural appropriation. Or, making hip hop music. It's like you may have, even if you invented hip hop music, it doesn't mean you own it in perpetuity. Other people can use that art, can engage in that art, right? So when the right rails against a black mermaid, black little mermaid being cast, I think aren't they? They're essentially saying that this is cultural appropriation, right? If they're telling that Disney that they can't do it or should not do it, they're essentially saying Disney shouldn't culturally appropriate Danish folktales. But in my view, this folktale it's in the public domain. Nobody owns it. So they have the legal right to make any kind of movie about Little Mermaid that they want, casting anybody. They have their right. This is similar to what we talked about last episode. You have the right to do it, but I just have the right not to watch it. That's me exercising my right. And I'm not going to say you can't do it, but what I will say is I won't watch the thing you made because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to me. If I watch a Little Mermaid or a Danish folktale, I want to see white people. That's fair. That's valid. That's my preference. Now, your audience and all the people who, they're crying about, oh, I finally get to see representation of me in a Disney film. And I don't know what you mean by finally. They have like tons of representation already, but that's fine. Your audience, they're free to enjoy it. I would never say that you shouldn't make it. But I just want you to leave me alone when we make a Little Mermaid that just has white people. That's all I ask. But they wouldn't. But the woke left wouldn't.
I don't quite understand the cultural appropriation that the right is saying that. Aren't they mostly saying that what they care about is sort of like fidelity to the source material?
Well, but that's somewhat similar to cultural appropriation accusation, right? It's sort of gatekeeping culture. Like, well, this is Danish culture. It has white people. So you cannot make something where it's black people instead of white people. I don't have that position. And I think that's a little hypocritical of the right. I think that they should be totally okay with Disney, appropriating Danish culture. But they should just call out the hypocrisy because that Disney and the woke left, they're the ones who whine the most about cultural appropriation, right? Whenever I'll bring it up again. Whenever like a K-pop artist wears braids, they're accused of cultural appropriation. And here's another thing that I want to address: that if you have this argument with a leftist, and I have, they'll always fall back on this point of theirs. They will say there's a difference between these two things. It's power imbalance. It's histories of oppression. So that's why it's okay for black people to appropriate white culture, but it's not okay for white people to appropriate black culture because there's a context, a history of oppression where white people have historically stolen black culture and profited from it, and black people have not done the same to white culture. And I think that's stupid on the face of it, but it has its own internal logic. Fine. Here's the problem. Here's where that logic falls apart, though. When the woke left also accuses Koreans of appropriating culture, because there is no context, there is no history of oppression between Koreans and African Americans, right? Like they have nothing to do with each other. They're literally like it's on the other side of the planet. There is no oppression, there is no context, there is no history. So why is it not okay for Koreans to just adopt this culture? They never oppress African Americans. No, it's still not okay. You know why? Because they just want power. They just want you to adhere to their values. They just want to
Yeah,
gatekeep
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
It's not about
Ultimately, yeah,
fairness. It's not, yeah.
yeah. Ultimately, it just boils down to it's a power struggle. I mean,
Yes,
yeah,
they want power. They want to make you do what they're telling you to do, and you maybe you don't. That's all there is to it. They're just seeing how far they can push that line, how far they can make you comply inch by inch by inch. It's not about the internal logic, the internal consistency of that of what makes cultural appropriation, what doesn't. That definition will move as is convenient for them to move the line. If moving the line requires me to say cultural appropriation is this today, that's what I will say it is. If it requires me to say it's something else tomorrow in order to move that line, then that's what I will say tomorrow. Because it's about power, it's about moving the line, it's about encroaching on you and replacing your values. If it was just about, oh, yeah, yeah, white people have stolen our stuff for so long and come on, make them stop. Maybe, okay. But as soon as they stop Koreans from using that culture, then I knew, I knew, well, I knew before, but it's proven right then what their real agenda is. So even though I think the right is wrong on this, I think they should just allow this. They should just say, "Hey, Disney's free to do what they want to do." But you know what? We're gonna make an all-white Little Mermaid. It's public domain. Let's make this is a perfect niche. You know what? If we're filmmakers, if you're a producer out there and you're listening, you know what you should do? You should make an all-white Little Mermaid right now. It's not gonna have the Disney music, of course, and that music is pretty good, in fairness. But you know, if you made that film almost in protest, you know what happened? All the anti-woke people will come see your film. So you have this built-in audience. You probably make money even if the film's not that good. Perfect opportunity right there. But you know what? You probably also might be accused of being a racist, just like the people who changed the race in this trailer to being Caucasian. Oh, that's so racist. Like, why is that racist? I've seen many comics. By the way, I've seen many people reimagine traditionally white characters as minorities. Why is that not considered racist? Right? It's just because they just want it one way because a power grab only moves in one direction. That's the thing that they're leaving out. They just want to assert dominance. They just want to assert power. They just want you to buckle. They want you to comply. And no, I refuse to comply. I'm not going to do it. And even if I have to align myself with these based people who are changing this trailer, which by the way, I think is kind of overly confrontational. Like, no, I mean, it's their trailer. It's not your trailer. It'd be different if you just made your own trailer and it had a white mermaid, but you're changing the race in their trailer. It's a little bit more confrontational, but I don't care. I don't care. I approve of people just pushing back against this narrative. I approve of people just saying no, just drawing a line and saying no and pushing back.
not only do they change their race, but the AI generated person actually is more attractive, I think.
I think the AI generated person is more attractive too, but that's just, that's purely taste. That's subjective. And you know what? Somebody's probably going to say that's racist. It's like, oh, you've just internalized Western beauty standards. And the answer is yes, I have internalized Western beauty standards. But here's the thing. I have them. They're not going away, right? I have them. They're not going away. So where are we at? I mean, when we show videos of Amazonian tribes roasting and eating tarantulas, what do Americans say to that? They say that's gross. I would never eat that. Why do you say that? Because you've internalized Western standards as to what is gross food and what is not gross food. That's the only reason. And I can prove it. I can prove it. Do you think crabs are tasty food?
You're asking me? No.
Oh, you
Uh,
don't?
no,
But
I'm
you
not.
think they're acceptable to eat, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll eat it, but I don't necessarily like it.
Yeah, they're not like some weird gross food.
Yeah, to be honest, it's more the effort.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're on a
Yeah.
tangent, but it's not weird and gross.
No, it's not.
Well, crabs are just spiders in the ocean.
Huh.
Look at them. What is the difference? It is a crazy, creepy spider in the ocean, but we think it's just not gross at all. It's perfectly fine. Oh, yum, yum, yum. Let's eat some crab. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
here's a crab bisque. Here's, crab cakes. Nobody says, here's tarantula cakes. Why do you think that's gross? You've internalized that standard. Could you, if you grew up in an Amazonian tribe, could you also view tarantulas? Yes. In fact, you probably would because you would internalize their standards, right? Now, let me ask you, why don't you just accept that logically speaking, a tarantula is no more gross than a crab. Therefore, you should just yum yum, just eat a bunch of it tomorrow. No, you would not, right? You would just say, "No, that's gross. I don't care. I'm still not eating that tarantula," right? Well, same deal with me and internalizing Western beauty norms. You can tell me all you want that it's kind of arbitrary why you think that white features, Caucasian features are attractive, more attractive at least. But they're not objectively necessarily, they don't have to be objectively so, right? These are just standards you've internalized. And I would respond yes. And now what? They're internalized. Do you want me
Yeah.
to do you want me to eat tarantulas starting tomorrow? I'm not. I'm going to continue to eat crab. I'm going to continue to view like a Caucasian shaped nose as being more attractive than other, ethnic noses. I'm just going to. We're beyond that point. And that's part of why and this is a fair argument for people who want representation, right? This is a fair argument. They say, well, part of why we want representation is in order to normalize other types of beauty. And I would say, yeah, that's a fair motive, and also it might even do the job. Like the more people see other types of people, the more they'll normalize those things as beautiful. Okay, that's totally fair. But do it with the stuff you make. Don't encroach on the stuff that I make or that is made for me. But they won't let you do that. You know why?
Because it's about power.
It's about power and it's about efficiency, right? Because imagine a world where about half of movies out there are really woke and have super hyper representation, and they show all forms of beauty, and they try to tell you stuff like even Lizzo is beautiful, right? Which she's not. And imagine half of the films still subscribe to Western norms of beauty. Most people are Caucasian, Caucasian features. Women have like a BMI under 22, thin waists, wide hips, large breasts, and all that sort of stuff. Then their desire to to normalize their form of beauty or their subjective concept of beauty, it's retarded a bit. It's slowed down. It's just not going to happen as fast because there's still a pocket of us, and by pocket I mean a full half of us or more, who are still watching, still subscribing to these old standards of beauty, right? We still have white people in our fantasy films. We still have hot girls are hot girls instead of trying to normalize it all girls are hot. We still have all of that, and that's fully going to be fully half or more of media. Well, it's more of an uphill climb for them because people are still exposed to this more traditional media. That's why they want to stamp out our media too. They know that they can't change the way people think culturally without also wiping out our stuff, our media. See, they want to say it's just about, I want to see myself in this. I want to see representation. They do. And insofar as they want to see themselves and they want to see representation, I'm totally okay with it. I think that's fine. I think that's totally okay. That there's nothing wrong with that. Make your own stuff, you see yourself in it. Or even buy other people's stuff, and maybe you see it yourself. Okay. It goes further than that. And they won't say this part out loud because of course this is more insidious. They don't want you to see what you want to see. They want you to see exactly what they give you because it will change the way you think. It will change the way you think about what makes a beautiful woman, what makes a fantasy character, what makes this, what makes that. They want to change the way you think. So they need to change what you see. And that's the bottom line. And that's the part they won't say out loud, but that's the part we all know is happening. They're trying to control your thinking. You can't control people's thinking if you let them maintain their pockets of art, maintain their pockets of media. because they can always just run back to that media. I don't have to watch a show with Lizzo in it. I can run back to a show where hot girls are in it, right? They don't want to let me have that. They want to make me think that Lizzo is hot. They want to make me think that Little Mermaid is black. They don't want choice. They don't want freedom. They want control. They want homogeneity, which is so strange because they talk about diversity. They totally want homogeneity in thought.
You know how in the red pill community, people like to say that politics is downstream from culture, right? As
Yeah.
if the culture, kind of what happens in the culture war eventually filters into politics. But if you take that conspiracy theory sort of view and you kind of like ask yourself like who's really winning, you know, who's really benefiting from this, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well. I think we both realize that there is an element of sort of government slash, you know, big corporations pulling the strings, right? And I guess one thing I don't understand is how this is beneficial for them.
How it's
Is it,
beneficial?
yeah, is it just, are they just trying to divide people, do you think?
I believe the government angle. Now, the woke left is trying to dominate. They want their way of thinking to just be everyone's way of thinking. But as far as the government goes, I think that and when I said the government, I mean the elites, because generally the elites are the government still. They do want us to be pitted against each other on along a cultural axis, right? All of these culture wars, which I'm not saying, some people say you shouldn't engage in these culture wars because you're missing the plot. You're missing how the elites are trying to manipulate you. I
Mm-hmm.
say still fight them because they're worth fighting. Because there's some idiots over here trying to push some idiocy upon me, so I'm still gonna fight it. But do be aware that the fight exists because elites want you to be fighting along a cultural
Right.
axis, and
So
they
so
don't
that
want you to look up and say, "Well, are there like elites, like billionaires and stuff, manipulating us into this?"
right. So in that sense that saying isn't quite accurate, right? It's like politics isn't really just downstream from culture, it's also upstream of culture.
Um, yeah, I think it sort of flows both ways, if that's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. They're kind of sowing the seeds.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you think Disney is able to get away with doing this? Why haven't well, like why hasn't every
Why are they losing money
or
yet?
yeah, why aren't most
Well,
conservatives just canceling their Disney Plus
Well, a lot are.
subscriptions
I
yet?
Here's what I think. I think that this is sort of like what we were talking about before the podcast about China and sending kids over here to be educated. Uh, these things are happening so quick. These changes are happening so quickly, but generations are still slow. A generation's still like 20 years. So there's just so much inborn goodwill towards Disney and its products that they're not going away anytime. People love Disney. They just love these properties. I remember seeing a lot of these movies and you know, people still love going to Disney World. The prices skyrocketed by the way. Like going to Disneyland is like I can remember when it was like what was it like under $100 at some point. It's like $400 to go there now. Did you know that?
$400? No, I did not know
Well, I don't
that.
want to. No, no, it's like
Okay.
180 or something to go once,
Hmm.
and then like most people get a package or something, and it's 400 or something. I'm like, what the hell? What the hell? I thought Disney was like, at one point I thought Disney was just gonna die out. Disneyland was gonna die out, and everybody just go to Disney World because it's bigger. Uh, it can offer more stuff. But no, Disneyland is as strong as ever, and people go there because they still have this generation of millennials that have such fond memories of Disney, and they're totally abusing that. They just, you still love it, kind of like a spouse.
Forget about Disneyland though. What about Disney Plus?
Disney Plus. Well,
Yeah.
Disney Plus still offers a lot of stuff. Like, let's say you're tied to Marvel or you still like Star Wars. You still want to watch these properties.
Do anti-woke conservatives want to watch these?
No, but remember that's not a huge percentage, you know.
Like the main thing I can think of is just, people with kids, right? A lot of conservatives have
Yeah, that
kids.
probably plays into it as well. Like you have
But then
kids, what can you do?
but then yeah, but then that's still only I don't know. It can't be that large of a you know base.
Remember also that most people are normies. They're not. They're not. You know. They're not tied into this culture war. Most
But
people are normies.
the more they shove this stuff into your face, the more it becomes apparent. Like a normie that wants to watch Little Mermaid, and maybe
Yeah.
they've seen the the animated
Right.
version, they're going to be
Right.
expecting the live action probably
Right.
to have a white leading, a white mermaid as
That
the
is a
lead.
risk that the Disney runs. That they more the more woke they get, they risk this sort of stuff. And oh, you know what? I just want to bring up. I had this linked here. We'll link this, but here's the other issue I have about how much quote unquote representation that Hollywood seems to be baying for constantly. It's usually black representation that they're talking about, okay? And LGBT representation, as far as that's my sense. But the reality is that black and LGBT characters are very overrepresented. Not very, but they're overrepresented in Hollywood. There's a diversity report conducted by UCLA in 2022 where it said that black characters are overrepresented. Like the population's only like 13.4%, and the number of characters in film and television is like 15 point something. So what is this urgency that I'm seeing or that I'm hearing about?
Yeah,
In
I think
fact,
that.
It's Asian and Hispanic people who are underrepresented, by the way.
Yep, yep. I think Hispanic was the most underrepresented, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So, and I certainly don't hear as much, I certainly don't hear as much hubbub over that.
yeah.
So what is the
All
issue?
signs, yeah, all signs just point to it's about power
Yes.
for a very specific group of people.
Right. And it's also about power for people who want us to be divided along these lines and arguing about this thing, right?
Yep,
We're not arguing about what BlackRock is doing. We're arguing about the skin color of Little Mermaid.
yep.
That's intentional. I believe that's intentional, you know? And unfortunately, most people are not clued in to this. Like I've seen even normies on my Facebook feed. I'm old. I still look at Facebook now and then. I've seen normies on my Facebook feed. They take one of two sides, like, well, anti Black Mermaid, and the people who are pro Black Mermaid, they're like, nobody posts memes about Larry Fink and how he is dominating your life because BlackRock has like $13 trillion assets under management, right? He has so much say in everything that all these companies that run your life do, and yet you don't even know his name.
How do you think this stuff is going to play out, like in I don't know, 20 years from now?
It's so hard to say. If I could tell, I'd be rich. If I could prognosticate like that, I'm guessing that America will be a shithole, and we'll have moved. That's what I'm guessing.
Hmm.
Really?
This is something, yeah, this is something we can cover in a different, episode. But
Yeah.
I did watch this YouTube video. This guy basically saying that China's in trouble based on first
Maybe.
principles
Yeah.
type of thinking.
It could
Um,
be. I know it's so hard to believe that right now because China seems unstoppable, like they're a juggernaut, and
yeah,
they are very powerful, of course. But a lot of people are not old enough to remember this. Neither am I. But back in the 80s, people thought the same sort of thing about Japan. They thought, wow, their economy is just growing so fast. There's no way we can stop them. And we'll be speaking Japanese in the future. Like, if you watch movies in the 80s set in the quote unquote future, like Blade Runner or Back to the Future 2, it had a very heavy Japanese influence because the prediction at the time was that Japan would be just on a level footing with America.
hmm,
They will be a world power, and so you would have to hear Japanese, contend with them, everything. Japan hasn't like fallen off a cliff or anything. They're still a very rich, very powerful country, but nobody thinks that now because they've run into like a stagnation.
yeah.
It's what people think of China right now, but just a reminder that what seems inevitable is never inevitable, and you can never totally tell what's going to happen in the future.
I have a feeling, first of all, I guess this is just blind faith, but I feel like in the end, the truth is going to prevail. And for me, all this manipulate, yeah, all this stuff they're doing is just it is just manipulation, and I don't think there's any real substance to it. I don't think it. I
Hopefully.
have a yeah, just my gut feeling is that in the long run, it'll wind up hurting more than helping.
Oh, hopefully you're right.
I added a video to that list of there's a lot of Little Mermaid stuff you put in there, but I added one at the end.
Black kids being excited, right?
Yeah. So that's an angle that nobody else really kind of talked about or mentioned is how these parents have either consciously or subconsciously brainwashed their kids into caring so much about representation that when they see
Right, right,
this black little mermaid on the screen, they're actually, leaping for joy.
right.
And I just think that, contrast with probably our childhood where I had never even remember thinking about, oh man, why is it that these cartoons don't have any Asians, right? Nor did I ever think about that when I was watching movies.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Part of the problem is parents. Now, I can understand the value in seeing yourself represented in media. I don't think that's worthless, but I do think that yeah, a lot of parents are stressing it. Like, look it, there's you on the screen or whatever. Like they overemphasize the importance of it, and
I
so
mean, yeah,
when people don't see them represented, they think they've been wronged somehow, as opposed to it just being a nice bonus. You know,
right. I haven't even, to be honest, I haven't even seen Mulan yet.
the which one, the animated one or the live action?
Either of them.
Oh, okay. I've seen the animated, and I
Okay.
sort of saw the live action.
Was it good actually?
No,
Okay.
I didn't like either. Strangely, though, other people love Mulan, like the animated one. They like the music. I think the
Hmm.
music is trash.
Maybe they
It's
are virtue signaling.
yeah, maybe I don't. No, I don't. I don't think so. I mean, just all of the Disney films, or most of them have. No, not most of them. Like Aladdin has minorities in it, so I don't think it's just a minority thing. I just don't think Mulan is that great. It's just like a step below, Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast.
So if you go to that video and you look at one of the top comments, I am Asian American. I never felt underrepresented for any Hollywood movie or shows while I was growing up. So that's got 1.7K upvotes.
Yeah, if they want black characters, research African folklore and myths, and I think they should make original content based on African folklore and
You know,
myths.
if you just think a little bit, more deeply, I guess, and just compare the different reactions. On the one hand, you have this black girl cheering, and then on the other hand, you have this Asian guy saying, or sorry, Asian person saying that they never cared at all. Why do you think that is, and which one do you think is going to be geared towards success? I mean, I feel like this is just another symptom that these kids that are getting brainwashed, they are not being
Right,
taught
right.
things that are going to help them in the future.
And yeah, this is when it's young kids like this, obviously the main influence here is the parenting. These kids are excited because the parents told them this is something to be excited about. And this other kid that didn't seem to care, probably the parents never focused on it. They didn't say, "Oh man, there's no Asian people in these Disney films." So they just didn't think it was a big deal, right? And you're right. It sets up a pattern where the locus of control and agency in your life is set up outside of you, right? So
Yeah,
whether or
yeah,
not you feel validated or seen is all about whether or not you see your skin color on a screen. Well, but then what you're doing there is you're ceding the locus of control and age of agency to Disney, to
yep,
whoever puts stuff on a screen for you, right?
yep, yep,
You're not taking that locus of agency for yourself and saying, well, regardless of what I see on screens out there, I can do this, I can do that. None of that will affect me. So I think that, and that's not what the parents are saying. Of course, they'll tell their kids like, oh, by the way, you can do anything you want to do. Sure, you say that to them, but in these other areas where
Do they
it's
really?
about Well, I mean, I'm
Yeah, I'm
sure,
not even sure they do.
I'm sure if you ask the parents, hey, do you think your kids can be anything they want to be and do what they want to do, regardless of what other people are doing out there? They would say yes. They would say yes to that question, but then their behavior in areas like this contradict that. They
Right.
would say, hey, you should be happy or sad or angry or dejected or upset based on what skin color some producer you've never met is putting on a screen for you to look at. Well, then you've just acquiesced all power to that producer as far as how you're going to feel, right?
Yep.
These kids are happy now because the producer somewhere who makes millions and millions of dollars and lives in a glass box mansion in LA has decided, let's put some black people in this film. Oh, now your kids are happy. You just given that guy or that woman power over whether your kids are happy. How do you feel about that? That's your actions. You told them that, well, whether or not you should be happy or not in this moment at least has to do with what they've done. And if they didn't do that, they would be dejected or upset or angry. Like now you've given that producer power to make your kids angry. Does this sound healthy? Does this sound like,
And they're making TikTok videos about this.
yeah. So that seems to be unhealthy. That seems to be not what you want to teach your kids if you want to raise well-adjusted people who are going to be successful in life. I would say, yeah, this comment where this Asian American person says, "Oh, that doesn't matter to me." That's a much healthier way to look at it. Even if you feel like, oh, I might be, it might make me feel good to see people like me on the screen. Yeah, but don't depend on it, because as soon as you depend on it, as for how seen you feel, how valid you feel, then you're giving somebody else power, and that's not any way to go about this. And you should just focus on things that you can control. I know it just sounds so trite and so basic. That's just like such basic advice. Focus on the things you can control. And I cannot control what a Hollywood producer will do. But that's part of also why I also don't get super upset that they race swapped, right? It's like I think it's dumb, but I'm not going to be cheering or booing whether or not somebody is or is not race swapped. I will just say, okay, you guys want to do that? That media is for you. Fine, have at it. Maybe I think it's crap, but sure, whatever. I would just like for you to leave me alone, right? Because when I do what I want to do, which is this is totally with keeping consistent with the I have agency over me. When we make films for us, when I make films for me, I want you to just stay out of it. I just want you like don't come over here and ask me like what percentage of this cast is LGBT. I don't care. Just stay the fuck over there. You know, I have agency. We make our own stuff. We make stuff that we like. Like for instance, when I started hating American media like music, like I don't like American music right now. I just think the rap is terrible. It's so much worse than it was, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I think the pop music is also bad. I think most of it is just dreary and it's full of mumbling. I just hate it. Did I get upset and whine about it? No. I just started listening to K-pop, which by the way is another example of, hey, are you upset that you're not seeing Asian faces in your media? Well, why don't you consume Asian media? There you go. There you go. Fully within your control. Asian media makes media that you like better and that has people who look like you and it's clearly catering to you. Why don't you just go consume that as opposed to whining about how many Asians are in American media? I really hate Asians who whine about representations for Asian in American media. First of all, I hate it because it puts Asians in the same category as people whining about representation. And I don't want to look at myself that way. So please stop doing that. And second, I'm on second or third. Second, okay, even when we get, I guess we can let the cat out of the bag. We're Asian. So even when we get representation in media, it's shit representation anyway. They put ugly people in it, like Simu Liu, okay, who's ugly. Sorry, Lucy Liu, okay, not attractive, not like attractive in the level that's needed to be. You get so much better people, surprise, in Asian media. I don't need to see Asian representation as viewed through the lens of a tastemaker or a producer who's white or black. Okay? Because they give me like Simu Liu, okay? That's the type of person that they give me. I don't like it. It's no good. And in fact, did you know that when that movie came out, Ten Rings, people in Asia all told him straight to his face, not to his face, but on his Twitter, directly to him, they told him that he's too ugly to play that role. And he said he was sad. And I'm happy. I'm happy that he was sad about that because you know what?
You know what?
You're not good enough for Asian media.
I've seen video of him, in real life. I think it was on YouTube, and he does. I think if you met him in real life, he would seem more chatty.
Chatty?
Yeah, like
He's talkative.
CHAD, more Chad.
Oh, Chad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm exaggerating, obviously. He's not ugly. He's not ugly, okay? Like, he's better looking than me. I'll say that. He's better looking than me. He's not ugly. He's good enough to be in media, okay? He's just not. If we're going to have one Asian guy who's like the biggest star in Hollywood,
yep.
he is way beneath the appearance level that I think that requires, okay? Like, if you were to choose one white guy to play all the white guy roles in China, who would you choose? You'd choose someone like Henry Cavill or Chris Hemsworth, like a super Chad white guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like this is peak Caucasian male form that we're looking upon right now. And therefore, if we're going to only have one, then it's got to be this one. But over here, they gave us this guy. And I'm sorry, he falls well short of that standard. He's not like the equivalent of a Chris Hemsworth. He's not Asian Chris Hemsworth, okay? So if you're going to pick one guy over here, I think you should pick like a Asian Chris Hemsworth, okay? But they didn't. You know why? Because they don't know. They're just like they're not culturally. I don't think they did it intentionally. They just culturally don't know what makes like a super hot, super attractive, top tier Asian person. So they picked this guy, and Asia reacted that way. So yeah, he's not bad looking.
Wait, have you seen that movie? You have, right?
Ten Rings? Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. I mean, how was his acting?
It's pretty good. I have no complaints about what he did in the film. Even the action scenes were pretty good. Like he learned some martial arts, and his acting was decent. I mean, it was like typical Marvel film where you have to have a few dramatic moments and quite a few jokes sprinkled in, and his comedic timing's pretty good. His dramatic acting is okay. It doesn't have to be great. It's a Marvel film, but just his appearance, just his level of like you're only gonna have like one Asian guy at any time in Hollywood, and this is gonna be it.
Do you think your opinion would change if his acting was truly exceptional?
No,
Okay.
because again, only one Asian guy in Hollywood at any given time. We really need him to be the entire package. Okay, he needs to know martial arts. He needs to be supremely good looking, and he needs to be a good actor. I don't think that's too much to ask when you're only going to pick one.
Yeah. Do you actually have any people in mind? I'm actually not, I'm nowhere near familiar enough with the scene to know.
Well, there was that guy I linked to you. Oh gosh, what is his name? The K-pop guy, the Hong Kong guy. God, what the fuck is this? Jackson Wang.
Okay.
So he speaks really good English. He's very, very good looking. And he's a great dancer, so I'm sure he could do all the martial arts scenes. I don't know how good of an actor he is. Enough for a Marvel film, I'm sure. They could have cast that guy. I'm sure he would have done it too. He's really into the whole I'm a brand unto myself, He's not just doing music or anything like that. You can look him up. He's much better looking than Simu Liu. Now, again, Simu, he's not a bad looking guy, but if you look at these two people side by side, you'll see what I'm talking about when I say that, guys, this is what you want or choosing to represent Asia. So no, I'm not even that eager for representation. Representation? This is the kind of representation we gotten.
Yeah, honestly,
you can keep it.
Yeah, honestly, couldn't care less.
Yeah, you can keep it. But I want to see people who look like me. I'll just watch Asian media, which is far preferable in many ways anyway.
Yep.
Here's the other thing that I hate about it. You know how many normie Americans watch 10 Rings and think, oh, I guess this is what an attractive Asian person looks like. What the fuck?
Really? I don't know. You think people
I'm sure
actually
that
think
some
that?
people, I'm sure, maybe if you like grew up in Alabama, right? You don't encounter a lot of Asian people. You could be forgiven if this film is your exposure to Asians and you think, oh, this is what an attractive Asian looks like.
Actually, you know what? I could see myself watching a movie, with Indian people. And if a similar situation happened with Indian people, I could see myself maybe thinking the same thing. Like, oh, this is
Right,
what,
right, right, right,
and
right, right, right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And oh, perfect example. There are films with Indian people, but they're in this country, the Indians have the same problem. They cast these like comedian Indian guys who are ugly. But if you go watch a Bollywood film, you have like fucking like Chad Preets, like running around these like huge guys who are like basically Indian Chris Hemsworths, right? That's what they see in Bollywood. But over here, you have like the guy in that Marvel film or whatever. Oh gosh. Oh yeah, Kumail Nanjiani. Do you know who that is?
No, no.
He's not Indian though. I guess he's Pakistani. Close enough. So that's what Indian people. That's who portrays Indian people. And yeah, so you want representation? Is that the representation you want? Guys, I don't want that guy representing my entire race. Okay? I would rather just it be left as a mystery, and the people who want to see what Indian people or Asian people look like, they're free to go seek out Indian or Asian media and see how we want to represent ourselves and then consume that. That's a much better representation of our people or whatever. So yeah, don't leave don't leave it in the hands of so and so, you know?
By the
Yeah.
way, so you mentioned this Jackson Wang guy. Do you have any recommendations for other media, Asian media for people?
Like as far as music or
Film, yeah, film or TV.
well, I mean
Do you actually
Korean
do you watch
I
that
do.
stuff?
I don't watch K-dramas, but I watch
Okay,
Korean films.
okay.
And Korean films are pretty good, you know. Korean film just won Best Picture at the Oscars.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one? I think the Oscars are an
What is it
example of
like?
just
Was it like Parasite?
long-term casualty of this culture war. Because I don't think do people really, I certainly like I didn't know, who won Best Picture. You asked me 30 years ago, I'd know who won Best Picture.
Parasite. Yeah.
Oh, Parasite? Wait,
Yeah.
what?
It's a South Korean
Uh,
film that won Best Picture
yeah, but for 2022?
2019.
Oh, 2019. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said this year.
No, not this year. But you have Asian media that you can watch. Yeah. Watch that. Don't insist that Western media give you representation. This is whatever. Or you can go ahead and ask for again, I don't have a problem with you making your own stuff for your own people and for your own audience. I just don't want to be called a racist or have you over here in my business when we make our stuff. That's it. If you can handle that, then we're good.
If
But
you think about
the
it,
left can't handle that.
we're sort of being saved by technology, right? Because if the same situation was happening 20 years ago, it wasn't so accessible to make your own stuff, right?
Correct.
Whereas right now,
Correct.
that's sort of changed, and so Daily Wire is pumping out their stuff. Uh,
True. Technology helps. It's democratized media.
yeah.